Okay, so today we are going to talk about flower essences, and the first thing that we need in order to do flower essencing is to have a toolbox or kit that you're going to take out when you do and find a particular flower, a bush or a tree flower that you want to make an essence of. So this is my kit. This is what I have in it. And we used to live in Arizona, which is Southwest desert. So anytime I went up to the desert, I always had a pair of leather gloves. These are not leather gloves. These are normal gloves that if you don't live in a desert where there's a lot of thorns and things like that, then you can get a nice pair of garden gloves. And yes, these are dirty. You can tell I've been working. And you wear those instead. The reason why you need the gloves is that sometimes if you're sitting with a bush or flower, especially a bush, you don't know what else might be under that bush. Now, like us in the desert, we know what's under bushes. Poisonous centipedes and poisonous scorpions that can sting you and literally can put you in the hospital or kill you. This is why you do not want to use your hands to reach under and you do anything anywhere. Always wear gloves. And again, if you're in a place where it is southwestern or you have things with a lot of thorns or whatever else, you want that leather to stop it. The next thing you need, usually you don't need a pair of clippers like this, but when you live in the Southwest and the plant has given you permission to take a particular little tiny branch that you want to use in your flower essence, you're not going to be able to cut it off with a pair of crystals, which is what I usually use when I'm dealing with a flower. You need a pair of pliers, and you don't sit there and jerk and break it or anything like that. You get the permission of the plant first, and we'll go into that later. But you may need pruners, possibly. Okay, so I've got a number of little tea towels here, okay? Tea towels are really important because usually when I go out and I do flower essencing, I'm looking to do maybe 2 or 3 flowers at a time. I don't go out for just one. And you're going to need towels, first of all, one to sit on, because you don't want to sit on the bare ground. You don't know what else is there. And trust me, in the Southwest, you could be sitting on a fire ant pile and not know it, but if you have something between you and them, that's a good thing. And we have lots of centipedes and other little critters that look really scary but aren't at all, but they could definitely not make your day. So everything that we do, this is how I carry my flower essence glass, and it always has to be a pure, clear glass bowl. Now this one has some cuttings on it and scrolling and stuff, and that doesn't matter. Usually I tell people to buy a custard cup or dish, and you can still get them, but it has to be made out of glass. It cannot be plastic or any other substance other than pure glass. And it has to be clear. It cannot be a colored glass. No other color except transparent glass like this. And for instance, if I'm going out and I know that I'm going to do 3 flower essences that day, because I plant them ahead of time, I know where these plants are at, where I live, and I know what time of year when the flowers bloom. And so I usually do 2 or 3 at a time. If I had 3 planned, I would have 3 of these glass bowls. You never use the same bowl for 2 or 3 flower essences, because then you're mixing and matching the energies of these different flowers that you've got in one. That's a mess. You're never going to find out what it's good for. So if you have 2 flower essences you're going to do that day, then you're going to have 2 of the bowls. And when I'm done with them, okay, I wash them out with soap and water and rinse them with warm water, and they're ready to go again. And I always keep them in a plastic bag, because that keeps a lot of other crap that might be around, like dust, out of your bag, and you won't have anything in that bowl other than the water with the flower that you're working with. So this is why if you've got 3 bowls, you're going to have 1 tea towel for each one, because you're going to have to pour it into the bottle, what we call the mother essence bottle, and I'll show that to you in a minute. You have to wipe it off. You take care of your equipment, you clean it off the best you can when you're out and about. So this is why we have so many tea towels. Now, let's talk about how we do this. I had training on flower essences with a good friend of mine. Her name is Rhonda Pallas Downey, and she lives in Cottonwood, Arizona. And I attended her workshop, and I was really taken with how much she loved the flowers, how spiritually oriented she was toward them. She considered them as being people that didn't look like us, but they're still people. They have a heart. You can talk to them. And I've been talking to plants all my life. So she taught me a lot about how to do it. The only thing that I changed with her is I took crystal training and gemstone training with Oceana Fast Wolf, who was a half Mohican, half Apache medicine woman. She was considered the best teacher of stones, of the Stone Nation, as we call it, and of North America, which we call Turtle Island. Turtle Island is Canada and the U.S. And my teacher, a Cherokee medicine man, Western, sent me to her, and I took 2 sage wands to her because that you always give a gift, an introduction from one medicine teacher to another. And that's what I did, and I asked her if I could stay and be taught by her, and she said yes. So everything that I'm going to talk about when it comes to the crystals comes from her rather than from Rhonda. There's different ways to gather flower essences. There's more than one way. If you got 10 people, you're going to have 10 different ways that they have been taught or trained how to do that. I'm going to give you the training I got. I'm not sitting here saying that this is the only way to do it and there's no other way, because that's silly. Different traditions, different belief systems, and things like that come into play. So it's however you were taught is fine by me, but I'm going to teach you the method that I was taught. And because I was taught by Oceana, when I told Oceana that I was being taught by Rhonda Pallas Downey about how to create a flower essence, she said, you're going to need some crystals. I said, okay, what type? And she said, well, first of all, you're going to need a tabby. This is a tabby. You can see it's fairly small, and there is a facet. All quartz crystal has 6 sides to it. The tabby is flat. This is the rough side, and this is the smooth side. There's a facet here, there's a facet here, and this is faceted here. But the rest of it was part of a quartz crystal matrix. So of the 6 facets, this one has 3 facets. It still works, all right? There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But what you need when you're working with a flower essence is you need something to put the stem on that is a flat surface that isn't going to move. Then you take your crystal wand. This is one. This is an actual organic one that has not been messed with. This one has definitely been machine made, all right, from a larger piece of quartz. But this is the real deal. This is a very fine, thin wand, and it has all 6 of its facets there. And what you want to do is that you want to lay the stem below the sepal, which is below the head of the flower, on your tabby, and then you can take this and you can just saw it off, and the flower will drop off, and then the rest of the plant's over here. And these are the tools. Now, Rhonda was adamant about never touching the flower with your fingers. In other words, making no contact with human energy physically, okay? And that's why she always had something like this to cut off the stem. These are fine for most times, but I can tell you this, that when you live in the Southwest desert, there aren't too many stems that are very flaky or wobbly or flexible out there. A lot of them have bark on them, or they're very woody stems, or they're very strong stems. And for that, this is a piece of tourmaline that I got that looks like a little thick log. But what I can do with this then is I can take my tabby and I can put the tough stem on it, and then I can saw it with this way and cut through it. And at some points, you're gonna find something that is not going to do anything with any of these, and this is where the pruners come in. And you're touching it with the pruners, you're not touching it with your fingers, okay? Just let it drop. And then what I do, whatever the flower is, we'll pretend that this is a flower. What I will do once I've got it cut off, then I will take usually these two, and I will pick it up and then I will put it into the flower bowl, and I will have already have filled this about half full. Now, depending upon your mother essence, this is my brandy bottle. This is a 1 ounce eyedropper bottle. I always carry both of these out in my bag because if I'm doing 3, I'm going to have 3 of these 1 ouncers, unless there's somebody that I need to make the ME or the mother essence for. And the way you make a mother essence is that 50% of it's going to be brandy. I always use cherry, but I mean, if you love peach or apricot or something like that, that's fine too. It's just that the people that I work with love cherries. That's how I ended up with cherry all the time. But in my ME bottle, it has no label on it right now, okay? As soon as I have filled it with 50% brandy, then eventually I'm going to fill the other 50% of what's in this flower essence bowl. I'm going to put this little tiny funnel in here like that, and then I'm going to pour enough of the flower essence. And again, when you lift this up, it's hard to lift it and go like this. This is why custard cups are much easier to handle because they're not so wide. This is a very wide one. But you can pick it up and you can go ahead and gently put some of the flower essence water in there.
And this is after you've put the flower.
That's after you put the flower in, yeah. We haven't even got to that yet. I'm just explaining some of the mechanics of it right now. This is the mechanics portion. Then we'll get to the spiritual proportions. But anyway, you fill up with the flower essence liquid to the shoulder. This is called the shoulder of this 1 ounce eyedropper. And once you've got 50% brandy and 50% flower essence, then all you do is you cap this and you make sure it's good and tight, and then you just go like this, and then you're going to put it aside. And in here, you're going to have several pencils or pens or whatever turns you on. You can have a marker, a color, a pen, and you always have your labels. And it's on the label that you're putting, number 1, what the name of it is. You don't go out flower essencing without some flower ID books with you, okay? And you can put those into your knapsack so that if you don't recognize a flower, maybe you can find it in your flower ID book. And even if you can't, you're going to put down on this label the color of the flower, how many petals, then where you found it. Now, a lot of people have iPhones or a smartphone that has a latitude and longitude app for it. And you can actually just create the latitude, longitude of where you found this, okay? Because you need to know.
And the date and time.
And the date and the time. And then if you're an astrologer, you want to look at what sign the moon was in for that day. Was it an earth sign? Was it a fire sign? Was it a water sign? Or was it an air sign? They all have differences of what that means, which I'm not getting into today because we're in flower essences and not astrology. But for us astrologers, that's a very important piece because it tells us about the energy of the day that was there when you made the flower essence. So I'm going to put this aside here. This is a piece of muslin, okay? It doesn't look like much. Muslin is very cheap. You can get it at any fabric store. You can get it at Walmart or any other place. And this is about a 4-inch square, and this is about all you need. And you're basically going to be using this later, and I'll tell you how we use it. Right now, I'm just showing you the tools, and then I'll show you how to use the tools. When you get into the other things here, I always carry extra Ziplocs. I always need them. I use them to protect something, or maybe I want to take the flower that I made an essence out of, I want to take it home, and I want to look at it a lot closer. This is one of the things that I do is I carry a magnifying glass with me. And the other is that this is a light that you can click on with this magnifier. And it's especially helpful if you want to find out how many stamens there are, or if you've got an ovary that's superior versus midline versus below the top of the flower where you see all of the little stamens coming out and everything like that. You always want to carry a notebook, and I don't particularly care for a notebook with lining on it. What I like to do is what I did here. This was one that I did, and this was on echinacea. And that's what I drew. This is what was important to me about this flower. The flowers are drooping or they're going down, they're not going up. And that was an important part of this dynamic of energy of what it is and how the energy is being used. The petals aren't up and around the heart or the center of the flower at all. And as a matter of fact, it's being left wide open and it really isn't being protected at all. So you have to understand that petals coming down leaves this very open, and then you got to ask yourself why, because this is all doctrine of signatures, which I'm not going to get into today on this video, but you do want something that you can write on, you want to label it, you want the time that you made it. If you're an astrologer, put down the moon and what sign it's in. Also the weather. Weather is important. I have found that especially during the summertime in the Southwest, we have what we call monsoon season. And monsoon season means thunderstorms, big thunderstorms. We're talking massive thunderstorms. And so I will be out and I'll notice that there's thunderheads back in the west and they're coming my way. So I figure out about how much time I have before it's going to hit, and then I'm going to get soaked. And there is a tremendous amount of lightning and lots of teeth-jarring thunder with it. You really don't want to get caught out in one. So I always make sure that I know what the weather is before I go out. Do it on a clear day. Do it in the morning, because morning is cooler in the summertime, especially in the Southwest. I used to go out at dawn. Just after it got light, I would start climbing Deer Mountain, which was right behind our house where we lived. And there was just about everything you ever wanted was on Deer Mountain or down in the valley below it. But it gets very hot very fast there. It can hit 90 by the time it's 10 a.m. And that's just too hot. And people who do flower essencing get so wrapped up and internalized over what they're doing and working with the plant, the spirit of a particular plant, they don't drink water. And this is a really bad thing. And I can guarantee you, if you do this out in the desert, you can be in deep trouble really fast. You can get heat exhaustion. And literally heat exhaustion can kill you, especially out in the desert. So you really need to know your territory, know where you're going. You need to know what the weather is before you go out and plan accordingly. Like, I have a huge knapsack that I wear that this entire, everything you see here in front of you is put into this big box. And it's made out of plastic, so it can't break. It's lightweight, it's heavy, it's thick, and it's solid. And so I just put this entire thing into my knapsack, and I've got the top to it right here. And you just lock it up. There's your flower essence. Okay, now there's a few other things you need here. You need a pair of scissors. They come in so handy. There's 1,000,001 different reasons why you might want to use it. Let's say you try using the crystals to cut the thing and it wouldn't work. And let's say you forgot to bring your pliers along with you. If you have, and this is a large pair of scissors, I would say you could get a little 3 or 4 inch scissors to put into your flower essence thing. It's in case of emergency, in case you need something. And if nothing else, it's also a weapon. You never know what's going to be around. Sorry, if you're a woman, you think this way, okay? It is a weapon. I've never had an occasion while doing flower essences that I've ever run into any males who were threatening, but you know, in today's environment, who knows? Okay.
Is that all the tools?
All but this one. And I want to bring this up. Anytime we deal with quartz crystal, okay, and if you take a look at this tabby, you can see that it's rough, and it can cut. All right, I could cut you with this. Literally, it's that fine. You don't ever want to put your quartz crystals or any type of stone that you're working with in a fabric pouch. Okay, this is a fabric pouch right here. This is a leather pouch. This is actually deer skin. It's got some fringe on it. And I always put anything that has to do with quartz crystal into leather, because it's going to be a long time before it puts a hole into leather. It'll put a hole into fabric in a heartbeat. So this is probably going to lead us into the more spiritual, ceremonial part that we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Let's do that as like a part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.